We've been ripped off for years, and we're not going to be ripped off anymore. No, I'm not going to bend at all.
The president calling the European Union hostile and abusive as he threatens 200% tariffs on European alcohol coming into the U.S. if Europe does not drop their new 50% levy on American whiskey.
We sell no cars to Europe. I mean, virtually no cars. And they sell millions of cars to us. It's like a one-way street with them. The European Union is very, very nasty.
All after the president.
Very, very, very nasty. Ooh, that's harsh.
President Wednesday slapped 25% tariffs on imported steel and aluminum.
We're going to talk about steel and aluminum, especially aluminum in this episode.
The president was totally annoyed that the Europeans did this. And so you're going to hear back from someone who emotionally cares about America.
Publicly, the administration projecting confidence, touting lower inflation, and both egg and gas prices coming down. But privately, NBC News has learned the stock market slide has Republicans concerned. Two people familiar with the discussion say officials at the White House's National Economic Council have indicated fears it could be difficult to rebound quickly from a downturn. Though in South Carolina, steel producer David Zalesny says Trump's tariffs are critical to saving American jobs.
You've seen a tremendous amount of fabricated structural steel coming across the border from Canada and really decimating and wiping out a lot of the domestic industry.
Today, President Trump mocking Canada again.
Canada only works as a state. It doesn't. We don't need anything they have. Keeping "Oh Canada," the national anthem. I love it. I think it's great. Keep it. But it'll be for the state, one of our greatest states.
One of our greatest states. Man, pretty funny. One of our greatest states, the 51st state. And, of course, Greenland will be state 52. I'm John F. Gately, broadcasting to you from beautiful Plymouth. You can call me Jack in Massachusetts, behind enemy lines. So Trump doubling down. I'm not backing down, nor should he. But I think the Trump administration probably could do a little bit better job at explaining what they're actually up to, because these tariffs are incredibly important for bringing jobs back to the United States or creating new jobs in the United States. And one of the ways that we have to get out from our massive deficit, basically only two ways out of that, where you can print your way out of it, which is huge inflation, which is what the Biden administration would have done, or you can add massive productivity to your country, and that's another way to, productivity-wise, out of this massive deficit we're in. And the third way, I should probably say, is to collect wealth from other countries. So if we have a massive deficit, we get inbound tariff money from those who do not want to locate their jobs here in the United States. And of course, when we have jobs in the United States, that is good for Trump's voting base, for working class Americans who are the core, right? The of the Trump coalition, the core of our working class Americans. That's why Trump won the blue wall, the so-called blue wall in those upper Midwest states, is because they swung to Trump. They swung to Trump. Let's take a look at how nasty the European Union is when it comes to negotiating with Trump. Here's Christine Lagarde in her St. Patrick's Day green explaining how nasty she is.
Europe, quote, the European Union was formed to screw the United States. That is the purpose of it. They've done a good job of it. That's a mindset.
Forgive the language.
Forgive the language, not mine, his. But my point is, if that...
This is some lackey from the BBC.
That's the mindset in Washington, and that is a pretty settled mindset. We've heard it from Donald Trump many times. There's only one way this is going to go, and it's going to get worse.
Well, first of all, I think history matters. And when you look back at when Europe...
History matters. We saved Europe along with Russia, don't forget.
...was formed. It was largely formed at the instigation of the United States of America, who wanted stability in our part of the world after the first and then the Second World War that we went through. So
which we in Russia won on your behalf because you would have lost it.
The United States was encouraging very strongly the Steel and Coal Union that was the initial formation of the European Union. So to argue that it was set up to screw the United States, I think is not just bad language, but it's an abuse of history. This is
Bad
not how
language. I'm so insulted.
it worked. Number one. Number two, at the moment, everybody is positioning. So when there is a very strong position expressed by one of the parties, such as the one expressed by President Trump, then on the other side of the pond or on the other side of the border for Canada, it's obvious that they will be positioning as well. What?
Oh, so this is just a big game. I get it now. It's just a big game. She goes on to say that when one side postures, the other side postures. Let's cut to this cut two.
Any trade war is going to hurt the global economy. So,
in other words, any trade war, we're afraid of losing.
The initiator, the retaliator, the re-retaliator, and so on and so forth, all of that is going to hurt growth at large.
We're really worried that Trump might fall through with this because we could lose because they're at a competitive disadvantage.
Everybody will suffer from that.
Everyone like us will suffer. Right. She's worried about losing the trade war, as she should be, because we've already shown historically that we can outproduce the European Union if we put our minds to it, right? The Second World War, remember that? In the meantime, and I'm not going to play the sound from this, but in the meantime, the premier from Ontario, Ford is the name of the premier, has already buckled to Trump and had a positive meeting with Lutnick, who is my now favorite Trump appointee. I didn't see Lutnick coming as being my favorite appointee, but he might now be my favorite appointee. And Premier Ford has now had a tremendous amount of views back and forth. I feel very positive. I looking out to reaching out next week, but this I can honestly say was the best meeting I've ever had coming down here. In other words, he's trying to put a positive spin on having the bleep kicked out of him by the president. And basically the president won the trade war with Premier Ford, and they're not going to stop selling us electricity because that was just a stupid thing to say to begin with. And in the meantime, we could start. How about we do this? How about we start building more domestic pipelines inside of the United States so that we don't have to worry about getting energy from anywhere else, right? The problem with that is that we have far lefty politicians that are adherents to the religion of green energy, like here in beautiful Massachusetts, Governor Healy, Governor Hochul. They have killed pipelines in the past because they don't want to burn fossil fuels. And instead, they put us in a position where we have to buy, otherwise we wouldn't have any. They have to buy power from other countries like Canada, or they have to go out and build green energy wind factories in the oceans, which kill whales. So, and then they say, whoa, we can't get energy from anywhere else, except that we could get it from Pennsylvania if we just burned relatively clean natural gas, and or we built carbon neutral nuclear power plants like they have in France, right? And of course, the technology on that is so far advanced from, the technology of 1970s nuclear power plants, which actually we used to have one right up the street here in beautiful Plymouth until they closed it a couple of years back. But why can't we have, I think it's now called modular nuclear power plant. I don't understand the technology, not a nuclear scientist here, but I'm just saying, why can't we move to that instead of all of these green energy boondoggles? And the answer is because the Democrat Party is completely wrapped up in the ideology and the money that's behind the green energy boondoggles. But that's a video for a different day. Let's focus back on Trump. Trump is not backing down on the tariffs. And what's happening here in the markets is there's going to be a little bit of volatility. There's going to be some volatility in the markets. Let's snap that here. Hold on, let me move this over here. There's going to be some volatilities in the markets as like people start to understand what's going on. And I'm not going to bend it all. Trump doubles down on tariff plans as stock sinks, according to CNBC. These comments came as major stocks indicated a tumble, with the S&P 500 falling 10% from its recent high in corrections territory. I'm not going to bend it all. That's the clip we've heard. We've been ripped off for years. We're not going to be ripped off anymore. Not going to be ripped off anymore. Understand, in this new pro-America environment, there are going to be some winners and some losers. There's going to be an adjustment period. There's going to be an adjustment period. You're just going to have to get used to it.